Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into some source material you sent over about productivity. Feels super relevant right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in today's world, being productive, it's almost seen as this like moral duty, isn't it? It's how
Mm.
we measure success, even our own worth sometimes.
Right. But this source jumps right into the, let's say, the dark side of that, where that drive goes too far. It calls it toxic productivity.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that's what we're aiming for in this deep dive, based only on the materials you gave us. We want to unpack what this source means by toxic productivity,
Hmm?
figure out the warning signs it lists, and look at the practical ways it suggests to, get back some balance.
Yeah, this isn't about bashing productivity itself, not at all. It's more about understanding that point where it tips over, becomes harmful, obsessive, like the source says. So we're really going to explore what this material lays out.
Okay.
So how does the source start defining this toxic version?
Well, it makes a really key distinction up front. It says toxic productivity isn't just like wanting to do well or achieve things. It's described as an obsessive need. Yeah, an
Obsessive.
obsessive need to always be productive, always on.
Okay, obsessive. And the impact of that, the source seems pretty blunt about the costs.
It really is. It spells it out. This happens even at the expense of your mental health, physical condition, and personal relationships.
Wow.
Think about that. Sacrificing your health, your connections, just to feel like you're constantly doing something, that's a huge cost.
That really puts it starkly. And the feeling it describes, it's like you can never really switch off. Is that it?
That's exactly it. The source talks about this feeling that there is no enough,
Hmm.
you know. You finish something, but there's no real satisfaction, no point where you feel okay stopping or just being.
Hmm.
And definitely no time for actual rest or enjoyment without that nagging guilt.
Ugh, the guilt when resting. I think that comes up later in the science, doesn't it? So this whole mindset, it means basically everything has to be useful,
Yeah.
productive.
Precisely. The source says everything must be useful. Everything must yield a result. So things like downtime, relaxing, hobbies that aren't about achieving something specific, they kind of lose their value in this mindset.
So it warps something potentially good like managing your time into this constant pressure cooker.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of, balanced time management where you work and you rest, toxic productivity, as this source describes it, turns your life into just a never-ending, unstoppable to-do list.
Ugh.
Yeah, it fuels that feeling of always falling short, no matter how much you actually get done.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. So how would someone actually spot this? In themselves, or maybe someone they know? The source gives us 5 key signs, right?
It does. 5 specific indicators. The first one it points to is guilt when resting.
Okay, yeah, we just touched on that. What does the source say specifically about this guilt?
It's that really uncomfortable feeling, when you're not doing something you've labeled productive. The source gives a great example, actually.
Yeah.
It says, if even during your actual free time, maybe you're trying to relax, and that thought pops in, I should be working.
Oh, yeah.
That's flagged as a clear sign that this toxic pattern might be taking hold.
Wow, yeah. That should be a working thought during downtime.
Yeah.
That hits home for a lot of people, I bet. Okay, what's that number 2?
The second one is never celebrating successes.
I mean,
The source describes this pattern where, like, the second you finish a goal, you don't even pause. You don't take a minute to enjoy it or acknowledge it.
you just immediately jump to the next thing on the list.
Exactly. You move straight on to the next goal as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
There's no space created to feel good about the accomplishment. It's just
Yeah.
check, next.
That sounds really exhausting and kind of joyless, actually. You miss the whole reward part. What's the third sign then?
Number 3 is ignoring your needs. And this is where you really start to see the physical and emotional toll.
Okay.
The source lists basic, fundamental things that get pushed aside.
Yeah.
Sleep, proper rest, eating well, just personal time.
So the work, the obligations, just that internal pressure to do something, it all takes priority.
According to the source, yes, they take priority even over your health. Your own well-being gets demoted below the need to constantly produce.
That links right back to that initial definition about the cost to your health. Okay, sign number 4.
This one is constantly increasing expectations.
Ah.
The source talks about this feeling where, look, even if you are achieving things, you feel this constant internal push that you have to do more. always more.
It's just never enough. Is that the idea?
Never enough is exactly how the source puts it. It says the bar keeps rising higher and higher.
Which must create a ton of
Oh
stress.
yeah, the source directly links it to creating stress and psychological pressure. You're basically chasing a finish line that keeps moving away from you.
Yeah, I can see how that fuels anxiety around work. And the last sign, number 5.
The fifth sign is pulling away from others.
Okay, and what does that look like, according to the source?
Well, the consequence it highlights is you just don't have the time or, frankly, the energy left for friends, for family, for nurturing meaningful relationships.
Because all your resources, your energy, it's all being funneled into performance.
That's exactly the word the source uses. It says everything is sacrificed on the altar of performance. Relationships, social connection, things we fundamentally need, they just become secondary or even non-existent.
Hmm.
So yeah, when you look at those 5 together, the guilt about resting, never celebrating, ignoring your own needs, the bar always rising, and pulling away from people, the source is pretty clear. These are the big red flags that productivity has tipped into toxic territory.
Okay, those are definitely powerful warning signs. But the source doesn't just diagnose the problem and leave it there, does it? It offers ways to fight back.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really practical and I think hopeful. The material lays out 5 strategies to actually counter this toxic productivity.
Great. Let's dive into those solutions then. What's the first one it suggests?
The first strategy is set clear boundaries. The core idea, according to the source, is learning to say enough and also learning to say no.
Which sounds simple, maybe, but probably feels incredibly difficult if you're caught in that cycle. Does it give specifics on how?
It does. It suggests defining a specific work schedule, clear start times, clear end times. And this is crucial, consciously dedicating time to activities that actually refill your tank, that replenish you.
Ah.
And here it comes.
Without feeling guilty about it. That guilt piece is key, right?
Yeah.
It directly tackles that first sign we discussed.
So literally scheduling in time for things that aren't productive in that narrow sense and giving yourself permission to actually enjoy them. Okay. What's strategy number 2?
Number 2 is practice mindfulness.
Okay.
The source suggests that being more present, more aware in the moment, helps you actually recognize when you're starting to push past your healthy limit.
Right. It increases that self-awareness. What else does it say mindfulness helps with? It also notes that it reduces stress and helps reconnect you with yourself. So it's framed as a tool not just for spotting the problem, but also for managing the stress it causes and getting back in touch with your own needs.
Self-awareness seems like such a huge piece of this. Okay, strategy number 3.
The third one is re-examine your goals. This one gets a bit deeper, prompting you to really ask some fundamental questions about what you're actually chasing.
Like what kind of questions?
The source suggests asking yourself, are my goals realistic? And maybe even more critically, are they actually my own goals, or are they just things I feel pressured to do by society?
Ooh, that's a big one. The motivation behind the goals. Because if they aren't truly yours...
Then, and the source says this directly, goals without meaning lead to burnout. It implies that striving for things that aren't genuinely aligned with you or are just impossible standards isn't sustainable. It'll just wear you down.
That makes a lot of sense. Connecting the why to the how. Okay, what's strategy number 4?
Number 4 is celebrate small wins. This is about shifting your focus, moving away from only caring about the big final result.
So like appreciating the process, the journey, not just the destination kind of thing.
Exactly that.
Sure.
Learning to value each step, as the source puts it, not just the finish line. It makes progress feel less like this huge, distant thing and more about acknowledging the effort along the way.
And how does it suggest doing that? Does it give easy examples?
Yeah, it keeps it simple.
Yeah.
This is just a simple internal, well done me, or maybe treating yourself to something small, like a small gift. It says that's enough to cultivate a healthier relationship with progress.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a massive celebration, just these little moments of recognition.
I like that. It makes it feel very achievable.
Okay, and the final strategy, number 5.
The 5th strategy offered is seek help.
And what kind of help is the source pointing towards?
It specifically mentions getting support from a psychologist or counselor.
Okay. And how does that kind of professional help connect to tackling toxic productivity? Well, the source explains it can help you understand why you operate this way. Sort of get to the root causes of that compulsive need to produce.
Ah, the underlying reasons.
Exactly. And then based on that understanding, it helps you develop healthier behavioral patterns
Hmm.
to actually break free from that damaging cycle. It acknowledges that sometimes these patterns run deep and getting some outside perspective and tools can be really necessary.
That really covers the whole journey, seeing it, understanding it, and then taking action. So, if we pull all this together from the source material, what's the big takeaway message in the end?
Well, the main point the source drives home is that productivity itself isn't the villain here. It's not saying ambition or achievement are bad things.
But it's when it changes, when it becomes.
Yeah, exactly. When it becomes an end in itself, as this source puts it, when it turns into an obsession that deprives you of joy and balance, that's the toxic side. The problem isn't doing things, it's the obsessive relationship you have with doing things.
Got it. So, the very first step out of that trap, according to this source.
The first step is awareness. Just recognizing these signs and patterns in yourself, seeing it clearly. And once you have that awareness, the next is the intention to change. Making that conscious choice to shift course, to prioritize your well-being alongside whatever work or goals you have.
And this source, it leaves us with a really quite a beautiful final thought, actually. It's a good way to wrap this up for everyone listening.
It really is. It's a powerful reminder about what life is really about beyond just output.
Mm.
It says, don't forget, you weren't born just to produce continuously.
You were born to live, to feel, to relate, to create, and yes, to rest. That's a powerful frame shift, isn't it? Away from the endless to-do list.
It really is a reminder that being human involves so much more than just ticking boxes and being productive 24/7.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for unpacking this source material with us, and thank you for joining us for this deep dive into toxic productivity. We really hope exploring these signs and, importantly, the strategies from the source has given you some valuable things to think about.